the hitchhiking, the sign that I've held up, that siren sester, that's quite basic comparison to one of the other ones I've got here, which I didn't have out at the time, but astral planes, which is related to out of body experiences, and just putting it up for a laugh here and there, and hopefully getting lifts from people who do understand what that means, whereas the majority of people would just keep driving thinking, I have no idea what that guy means. Like, so, but yeah, tell me more about your dreams then. So you were literally, from the moment you put your head down, you can pretty much enter a vivid enough dream state, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually very clear. I mean, it's as soon as I shut my eyes, something will pop up. It's not necessarily something from the day either, and it could be something as strange as like I don't know, a penguin making a sandwich or something like that. But it's completely chaotic when I first sort of shut my eyes. But
yeah.
Sort of deeper I guess I go into sleep, the more sort of structured it gets.
Yeah.
And then sort of things start to play the role, and to a degree, I think I can pretty much sort of push it in the way that what's happening, I can pretty much get it to do what I want to do. At least for the first, I don't know how long you dream for, but that is what seems like the first part of the dream. I can almost structure the story as what's going to happen, and it is quite realistic.
Yeah.
And then it just goes off on a complete tangent, and like you say, you just go into like a normal, random things start to happen, and but sometimes I will dream, like I said earlier, I've dreamt a whole day at work, and there's been nothing in the dream whatsoever that made me think that I've been in a dream.
Yeah.
And I've woken up in the morning and I was just exhausted. I was just completely knackered, thinking I'd done a day's shift basically. And I used to have quite a physical job as well.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of climbing, like an industrial climber, and then I didn't dream as much, but I think the dreams were more vivid then, or probably more realistic then than they are now. But yeah, it's just no.
So have you actually had dreams to where you would class them as being lucid then, where you've literally been, you have enough awareness to actually start directing your experience within the dream?
Yeah, most times I think I can. At the start of the dream, definitely. Sometimes when I go to sleep, if I've got nothing particularly on my mind, then it will just be a random dream, and it will just be the most ridiculous objects will just appear.
Yeah.
Things like that in the dream.
Yeah.
So as a result, rather than just all these flashing images as such just appearing, I try and sort of structure it to make sure it's not just going to try and keep me awake, and like almost plan a story, I guess, just before I go to sleep, and then I'll just push myself into that sort of structured dream. But at some point, it will just, I will lose it.
Yeah.
It will not sort of stay as it is. But I do carry on dreaming, and then so sometimes I wake up and I'll roll over and have a completely different dream, and never usually the same dream twice either.
Yeah.
So
Wow. And have you ever had any sort of? I want to dig a little bit, just because of the level of dreaming that you're due is, I think, quite significant, because a lot of people, majority of people, actually find it difficult to recall dreams on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And if you're pretty much having hours and hours worth of sort of dream time, that's quite cool, because you would then be able to recognize maybe certain sort of phenomena, which might actually sort of give you an opportunity to explore avenues which maybe you've never thought about, because maybe it's not been brought to your attention before. Yeah. So, any sort of weird phenomena like that, or sleep?
Well, the only thing that's sort of similar to that, I guess, is where I've woken up and I'm still sort of asleep, or my body's still asleep, and I don't know, I can't
sleep
recall what you call
paralysis.
it. Yeah, basically, I've had that quite a lot, and certainly when I was younger, I used to get that all the time, and but I can feel it coming on in the dream, and then that will wake me up, and then I'll be there, and I'll just be frozen, and I'll probably get that maybe once or twice a month, maybe. But when I was young, it used to be quite. I used to get it pretty much every other night.
And frightening, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, there was always that story of it's a witch sat on your legs.
That's right. Yeah.
So as a kid, it used to sort of petrify me, but
yeah, that's called the old hag syndrome.
yeah, but still, even today, I mean, you wake up. Well, I wake up and I'm still conscious of it, and you know, and initially when I woken up, I know I'm still not quite awake. I'm still dreaming a little, but you know, I'll still be in that sort of state, and you know, I can sort of pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
But that's the only really sort of any sort of sensation that I feel.
Okay, well, I mean that's that's quite a good one. I left that off the list actually because I thought, okay, well, if you're dreaming, you're probably not going to feel that. But it's interesting because sleep paralysis, and I'll go through with you really quickly on how to break the state if you wanted to break it quicker than maybe you're used to doing. But it is almost like the perfect sort of state to explore it deeper once you've actually woken. Well, if you've woken from the dream, or if you're waking within the dream, you're in the dream and you're awake, and you feel the paralysis coming on, that's actually quite an interesting moment where you can make a command within the dream state to actually sort of explore beyond the dream, to see if there is a sort of reality beyond the dream state. And out-of-body explorers will typically, they do something called body asleep, mind awake, which is pretty much entering that state of paralysis, then deepening their sort of awareness to a point to where they're no longer even aware of their physical body, they're no longer aware of their physical surroundings. So at that point you can suggest it's just deep meditation, it's a very deep sort of trance state. But then there's other phenomena that sometimes occurs, which is quite universal for most out-of-body explorers. They'll maybe feel like a rush of energy. Maybe they'll feel like their heart is about to leap out of their chest. They get this sort of racing heart syndrome, and they then sometimes a lot of people report having a sense of detachment from the physical, and then sometimes actually being able to see their physical body from a perspective sort of moved away from the physical body. So paralysis, the sleep paralysis, is something that does sort of almost, it's like a bedfellow of this sort of exploration. But to break it, a lot of people recommend that you focus on like moving a finger or a toe and focus all your energy on doing that.
Yeah, it's usually my neck.
Your neck, yeah?
So I twist my neck, yeah.
Well, how long does it typically take you, even with that?
Maybe 15-20 seconds, maybe something.
That's
like
not bad, actually. That's not bad at all.
It's quite a strong. I really do feel like I'm fighting my own body and trying to pull out of it. So.
Well, there's another technique which you might want to explore. Then it's the one I was going to say, where most people sort of try to move fingers and such. It can sometimes take minutes for people to break that state. But if you change your breathing pattern, this can typically help break the state equally within about 15-20 seconds, and without much effort, because unlike the muscle paralysis, the respiration is still in full operation, and you still have control over it. So if you held your breath for a second, then changed it erratically, literally within 15-20 seconds you're going to break the paralysis. So that's another maybe tool to try if it's not something you're comfortable with.
Yeah, maybe it's trying to move my neck that gets me panicking. I mean, because when you wake up, you do think there's immediately something wrong, so you do panic anyway, I guess, a little bit. But even the amount of times that I've had it, it still gets me. So,
yeah, no, it's understandable.
And not being able to move the neck, I don't know. Maybe that is changing my breathing. I don't know. But
it could be actually, because I'm actually quite surprised how quickly you're suggesting you break it. Because most people, when they try to focus on moving a body part, it takes minutes, and I can imagine it would actually seem longer for them, because they will start to perhaps panic about it as well.
I didn't realise it lasted so long, to be honest.
Yeah, it can. And I've got an uncle who actually for 60 years he's had this consistent sleep paralysis as he's going to sleep. So he feels it from the moment he goes to sleep, and he panics so much with it. He's now like created this little system to where he can make, because as you're probably aware as well, you can't even use your vocal cords to call out. So he's developed this little squeaking sound that he makes that his wife can just hear. It's just audible enough, and she then kind of gives him a bit of a shake.